Welcome top news today.
Spokesman raps Trump for meddling. Insistence on insulting Iranian nation Tehran. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Bahram Qassemi lashed out at U.S. President Donald Trump for his insistence on tweeting interfering words against Iran and insulting the country's people. His fully disarranged and contradictory positions against the Iranians are not a new issue. He has recently called the Iranians a terrorist nation and used a fake name for the Persian Gulf to provoke the Iranians' national sentiments, Qassemi said on Tuesday. He blasted Trump for insulting the Iranian nation in his recent tweets, and voiced certainty that Iranian nationals across the world will react to him. Qassemi advised Trump to pay attention to the problems in his country, including the armed conflicts, displacement of people and hunger, and adopt good speech and deeds instead of interference and insulting other nations. In relevant remarks on Monday, Iranian ambassador to London Hamid Ahmadinejad lambasted Trump for insulting Iranians by calling them hungry people, and asked him to focus on the situation of American people in Puerto Rico who are facing power shortage for over 3 months. More than 3 months after the storm in Puerto Rico, half of the people still do not have access to electricity. Trump should be encouraged to work harder to solve the American people's problems rather than focusing on problems of other nations, Ahmadinejad read on his Twitter page on Monday. The app quoted Puerto Rico authorities as saying late in December that nearly half of power customers in the U.S. territory still lack electricity more than 3 months after Hurricane Maria. After his earlier insult in calling the Iranian nation terrorists, has now called Iranians as people hungry for food. Very bad to remind him that 1 out of 8, meaning 42 million people, including 13 million children and 5 million seniors, are hungry in the U.S. today, Ahmadinejad added. He said that if the U.S. administration asks the Iranians to help the hungry people in the U.S., they will certainly give a positive response to his demand despite the problems they are facing. His remarks came after Trump tweeted on Monday that the great Iranian people have been repressed for many years. They are hungry for food, for freedom. Along with human rights, the wealth of Iran is being looted. Time for change. The Iranian Foreign Ministry had also on Saturday strongly deplored the recent comments by Trump and State Department spokeswoman Heather Nauert in support of the recent economic protests in Iran, describing them as cheap, worthless, and invalid. The Iranian people feel no value for the opportunistic claims of the U.S. officials and Mr. Trump himself, Foreign Ministry spokesman Bahram Qassemi said. Certainly, the great Iranian nation has closely pursued Mr. Trump's active partnership in violating the Palestinian, Yemeni and Bahraini people's human rights and remember his hostile approach towards Iranians' visit to the U.S., he added. The U.S. officials are not in a position to show sympathy with the great and wise Iranian nation, Qassemi said. Trump and Nauert had tweeted in support of the recent economic protests in a number of Iranian towns. Trump has refused to recertify a 2015 deal between Tehran and world powers that curbed Iran's disputed nuclear program in return for a lifting of most international sanctions. Washington has so far violated the deal with regard to its undertakings. The mainstream media in the West has given a wide coverage to the Friday economic protests in a few Iranian towns that each comprised of a few hundred protesters, but none has covered the massive pro-government rallies held in more than 1,200 cities and towns on Saturday.